do. I have a project coming out very, very soon. It's a very, very introspective album. You know what I'm saying? Very storytelling. I've come to the place where I just realize I'm a storyteller. You know, like that's what I love to do. I love to tell stories, using my voice to actually paint a picture, and not just pictures of things that I just imagine. You know, I like to paint pictures of things I actually seen. You know what I mean? You know, they say, you know, the eyes is the window to the soul. You know, but and I think that my soul has looked out of my eyes into the world, and I've seen a lot of things, taken a lot of things in. So artistically, what I feel like God has given me, He's given me a gift where I'm able to kind of take everything I've experienced and package it into a story, give it to the world, and I feel like people can relate to it. And I think from growing up being like a very big Tupac fan, I was a big fan of like a lot of underground rap. A lot of those people like told stories of things, and I kind of grew up on that, so it kind of helped kind of grow my own gift as that. So, you know, one day I just looked in the mirror like, as a rapper, yeah, I'm a storyteller. I don't have like crazy punchlines and crazy metaphors, you know what I mean? But I could definitely tell you a story to pull you in and keep you wondering what's next. No, well, it wasn't really in front of a mirror. It was in front of a metaphoric mirror. It was me listening to my own music, and listening to my own music, I reflected on like where I was in the space where I was at when I wrote that, what I wrote about. Just some old stuff, you know, stuff from like Mic Check, stuff from the days when I was like Brother Tone. You know, I have a song called Homeless that I tell the story of like an actual homeless person, and I mix it with the story of I had a homeboy who was actually homeless that I grew up with. He became homeless, so I kind of merged those two, actually told his story, you know, and it was actually something I experienced for real, you know what I mean? So listening to that, I feel like Christian hip hop has kind of groomed artists in a way that kind of says, if you come from the ghetto, if you come from the streets, if you come from a rough background, from gangs, if you really do have a horror story and you're telling that story, you're boasting. You know, so for years as an artist, I just kind of felt insecure about my own story, because I do have a shoot 'em up bang bang story. Like I had a rough childhood, you know what I mean? And so coming up, when I became new to Christian hip hop, had a lot of people tell me, y'all just boasting, you're just boasting. No, you're just boasting, making it seem like it took God more work to save you than to save anybody else. And so I felt insecure about that, and I felt like, well, I guess the only thing I'm supposed to do is just talk about Jesus dying on the cross. You know what I mean? And so I just tucked my story inside and never told it. So I just feel like during this time, especially when you look at society and where society is going, and you know where people are at, and I do a lot of out of the church ministry. You know what I mean? Like I really deal with young people who live in the projects. You know what I'm saying? Listening to their stories, spending time with them and seeing them, and I go, who's telling this story? Like, I have a story that can actually impact them, but because of my insecurities, what I think people within my culture thinks, you know, I don't tell it. And I feel like I'm doing God a disservice not telling that. So it's like I'm robbing him of glory. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to glorify God, then I'm going to glorify God in the sense that makes him big in my life in the eyes of others by telling them this is what God brought me from. You know what I mean? There was nothing other than the fact I feel like I had a moment of clarity, you know, of thinking I don't tell my story. You know what I mean? Like I don't tell my story. I feel like at this point, you know, as far as the content of my music, I felt like I wasn't being as authentic as I could be. You know what I mean? And so like I said, from years past of people who have along the way sowed these seeds of insecurities, you know what I mean, concerning my story. I just feel like I think I need to tell my story. You know what I mean? Like, so you know, whether it was the Holy Spirit, which I believe it was the Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely the Holy Spirit, like massaging my heart and giving me the courage to say, you know, be transparent about your life, be transparent about your story, give it to the people, and let me use that. You know what I mean? Like, this is the gift that God has given me, so use it. So that's what I'm doing. My whole squad, like Derek, Chad is very vocal about it. You know what I mean? Chad is very vocal on, yo, like, tell your story. Cannon, you know, Doc, like the whole squad. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, I think their support has confirmed what I already felt to begin with. You know what I mean? So it's not like they said it, I responded. I was in this place where over time, while the content of this album was kind of saturating in my mind, you know, and I was like, okay, I think this is what God is saying to me. I think this is what God's telling me to do. So in that moment of trying to find that direction of how I'm to actually pen the songs I'm writing, they come along and say, you should tell your story. And then I'll see Chad in the studio. You should tell your story. I did, on Derek's album, we did Slow Down, you know, and I went in, I recorded the verse, and then Derek is like, that's the stuff you should be talking about. Like, you've actually lived through that kind of stuff. You should tell. So it's like all these different voices that of people that I honor and respect. I respect their opinion. This is my squad. You know what I mean? Like, I really honor and value what these dudes say. You know, so to hear him say it to me brought confirmation of what I was already feeling from God. You know, and I'm like, yeah, I got my squad behind me. I'm gonna do it. And so I think my fear was more of how will our culture, the fans of our culture, actually receive it. You know what I mean? Because right now, I just kind of felt like the atmosphere wasn't really set for that. You know what I mean? It wasn't a breeding ground for that. So I was just kind of like, man, how will people receive it? You know, because for the most part, I feel like there's a lot of fans who have stories themselves that don't tell it, or a lot of them who don't have the same story that I have. I feel like, can they relate?